Hello, wild ones. I'm very excited for a special episode today. I would say that I'm not even really the host. I would say that we're co-hosting this together, but I'm very excited to have back Dr. Carla Ionescu. And we decided to do this kind of combined episode together of talking about our really exciting retreat offering that we have for April. And this is in Greece. So this is going to be a really cool episode of diving deep into that, getting to know us a little bit better, what we plan on doing for this trip, diving into all of the deeper meanings and everything like that. So Dr. Carla, thanks for coming back. And I'm really excited to be able to be partnering with you on this journey, this amazing trip.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for recording it and for doing all the little cuts and everything that you're doing.
It's
Um,
no problem.
but especially I want to thank you for helping me make this a reality because when we first met, we were talking about doing trips and I was saying the same thing, like I would love to do a trip and I just don't have the time or energy to do certain aspects of the trip. And I remember you saying, "Well, I actually enjoy doing that. That's not bad." And I thought, "Okay, yeah," because people have said that to me before, and I thought, "Okay, yeah, okay, we'll see." And
Right.
yeah, and then we started on this journey and it came together and um yeah, like we were talking about a couple of days ago, it feels surreal a little bit.
It
Um,
does.
right?
Yeah.
Like I drive into work dreaming about it. Um like just seeing us in places like at the museums and at the sites and just seeing the group of us together and then gathering like for dinner or the next day at breakfast and then talking about these things. And
Yeah.
I think I've been imagining that for so long that to see it manifest itself into a reality now is so
Yeah. And I'm really honored that, this worked out like so pleasantly, so well. And I would say I felt really called to do this trip with you. I think that right after we got done filming our first podcast together. So if anybody that hasn't listened to that first podcast is really good, I would recommend you go and do that. But it really had me thinking more of like, wow, I really want to connect with this goddess, coming from my background of like having my clothing brand and it being based off of the wild woman. And I think I also, as a mom, I have, almost 4 year olds at home. And I hadn't been traveling as much, just really yearning to have another really great experience because I've been to, I think it's around maybe like 16 or 17 different countries. So I've definitely traveled a lot and
yeah.
I've traveled, alone. I've traveled with my husband. I've done a lot of different excursions. And every time we go away, I always plan out, always make itineraries for our trips, and I was always looking at really cool, fun excursions and things like that to do. So researching, and I remember I always had like a notebook of like bucket list trips and things like that and what I would do in those cities. It does really mesh well with what I do like to do traveling and researching my like what to do and all of that stuff. So that's kind of like my background. I was so excited to do this. It was like a couple of things combined together. I think that I've been dreaming about it too, and I've been seeing signs from the goddess Artemis and just being called. And I'm really looking forward to this so much.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me because every time that you would say, "Hey, you want to do archery?" I'm like, "Yes." "Hey, do you want to do this thing?" I'm like, "Yes." Um, because I think we have that in common. I love doing interesting things when you go to places or like having
Yeah.
experiences. You know what I mean? Um,
Yeah,
I
that's
feel
the
like,
best part about
yeah,
traveling, at least for me, is like, and I think that that's something too. Like, I would rather spend my money on experiences rather than like expensive clothes or something like that,
yeah.
for me personally. Like, that's
Oh,
just where it's at.
same, same. And I really like doing activities locally and in this case, for example, inspired by the goddess, because I also feel like you get to really embody the experience. Like
Yeah.
We will go to museums, obviously, and we will look at things, but I think when I was younger and I would go with people to places like visiting different archaeological sites or different things like that, I really liked the after party. Like I really liked, and it wasn't really a party because you can imagine a bunch of us just sitting around, but I really liked the discussion part, like where I would be like, oh, I
Yeah.
saw this piece and it was whatever. And someone else would be like, oh, that piece is from wherever. And then someone else would be like, and by the time I was done, I was like, oh my God, that's really fascinating. I wouldn't have had that had I just wandered around the museum by myself and hadn't had someone to have a conversation with. Uh,
Yeah, the more you like like dive in
yeah.
and like get to know like more of the background, it reminds me of like rewatching a movie, right? Like the
Mm.
first time you don't know the plot, and then the second time you watch it, you get to know a little bit more, like you pick up on other things, and then if you watch it a third time, you pick up even more things. So that's a really cool point, like experience, to be able to really learn in depth about what you're seeing.
Yeah, I love that. And for me with Artemis is that as I've been on the mapping project, two things. I wanted to create something that was like a mini Artemis mapping project, like because as obviously some places are either very far or very difficult to get to. So I wanted to
Right.
give people a little bit of a taste. But then when I go to these places, some of these places, one of the things that I do when I get there is I'll be like, and part of the meditation is a kind of a promise, and there's no such thing as kind of a promise. It's either a promise or it's not, that I will
Sure.
bring people here. I'll be like, if you guide me into the with the right people and the right place, I will bring people to these places again. And I feel like that this trip and the way that we're beginning to do some of this travel is sort of a fulfillment of that promise in a way. Like,
Yeah.
and
Oh, beautiful.
I'm very excited about that. I'm very excited yeah, about bringing people to sites and seeing how they feel and some places might connect and some places might feel a little more empty, but I'm very excited. Um,
I'm really looking forward to it too. For many different reasons.
yeah.
First and foremost, being that I have not been to Greece yet in all of my travels, going to so many different countries. Have not been to Greece.
Yeah.
So I am super, super stoked to be able to go and experience this place. It's been on my bucket list for so long. And I think something that's so and kind of like going off of what you said about how like you walk through a museum, but when you go with somebody and like that's really knowledgeable, you can really appreciate that much more. I think that because this is such a specialized trip, like we're really going to be seeing something of Greece that's not, I think, as much focused on, and it's really under the radar of, wow, this is like really amazing, beautiful stuff to connect with, and specifically Artemis, because I think she just gets kind of brushed off in the Greek pantheon. And this is a little plug here. This is Dr. Carla's book, She Who Hunts. I just finished it, and she just came out with her new book, She Who Endures. So that just got released, which is great. I still have to read the second book, but I just finished She Who Hunts because I just found time to. It was such a great read, and what fascinated me the most was the depth of how far back Artemis's reach actually goes. Like this whole trip that we're talking about, right? It's like kind of picking up a rock and seeing like everything that's under there, like that it's kind of been hidden away. And what's cool with your goddess mapping project too is like you're unearthing those things, and connecting with those things.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm very excited about that as well. And I think that um one of the things that I envision is this combination of going to a museum and having everyone sort of freely walk around or photograph or take notes of things that stand out to them because I'm
Yeah.
curious about people's experiences. And then knowing that afterwards or at some time we could sit around and talk about that. Because there is something to be said about letting people experience a site or a
Yeah.
place, right? Um,
Hmm.
when we walk in. I mean, I think that I can't help but tell maybe some stories on our bus rides to places. but still,
Right.
arriving to a place and seeing it, like we're going to Eleusis and to Brauron and things like that, and then walking around the museums. The museum in Eleusis is new. It just opened like last year. And the pieces that they have in there blew my mind the first time that I went in there. And then they have an experience where you kind of walk in the back the way you would walk into the Thesmophorian. Um, like it's dark and there's sound, and anyway, it's such a unique experience. And I can't believe that the places we're going to are called sort of off the beaten path. I mean, they are, touristically speaking, but I can't believe it because they're just so outstanding. And
Yeah.
so a part of me is like, we really need to bring people to these places more and more, you know?
Yeah, I'm very excited. And I think just to your point is that everybody's always going to have a unique perspective, or what pulls them into a piece of, history or art is always going to be something different. So that's something I'm even looking forward to, like being able to connect with whoever decides to be, called to come with us, is like, oh, what do you see with that? And I think it's just going to be a great group of like-minded people being able to come together and experience connecting with people that have such a similar mindset. I mean, this is like the whole reason why I started my own podcast, besides like trying to, expand past my clothing brand, was because I wanted to go more in depth and talk with people that had the same mindset or had the same interests, and going deeper and diving deeper into these topics that I just find fascinating. Maybe it's a little selfish of me, but it's really awesome to be able to connect with so many different people that find their wild in different ways. And so I think that's what also really called me to want to do this trip with you, because I thought it was like a really great combination of both diving into the history of, finding Artemis and walking her footsteps, and then also finding your wild both inwardly and outwardly. Like we're going to be doing, hiking and archery and clay making. So all of these different things, it's like a nice combination of all of those things that I think represent Artemis.
Yeah. And I love that. That's why, and I love that we have that variety, because as you might not be surprised, I lean heavily on the education part, but also I think when you're trying to experience, well, any goddess, but particular Artemis, it is important that we walk through the forest through which she walks and used to walk regularly, like
Right.
um, being on the mountains and in the forest with her, like that combination of going to her temples, seeing some of the artifacts, then being in the forest with her. I mean,
Yeah.
really, it's an incredible way to honor the goddess, and for Artemis especially, because we're out in the woods and we're hiking, and um, but it's also in a way another way of seeing Greece a little bit. Like I think that there are some
Yeah.
standard things that people do when they get to Greece, and we had this discussion about um, and so I think we've managed a great balance of seeing the traditional history, but then also the nature and a little bit of
Yeah. Because
food.
I feel like when a lot of people think of Greece, they think of obviously island hopping, right? Like that's probably one of the biggest things that when people travel to Greece, they go do that. And not that there's anything wrong with that, because it's obviously beautiful. I would love to do that someday. But I think, again, this is just a really focused in trip that we just felt called to explore more of. And being able to go and see, the mountains. So where we're going is Mount Parnitha. It's pretty close to Athens. I think it's only just shy of an hour outside of Athens.
Yeah.
And it's the closest national forest or something like that, in Europe, to a major city, which is really great. So we have the best of both worlds in regards to that. There's also a very small wolf population there, which is pretty cool. I mean, very hard to find. I don't imagine that will be
Yeah.
as I mean, if we're so lucky, but it's very hard to see wolves. But we will definitely be hiking in the space where they are. And there's also in Greece, there's an endangered red deer population,
Yes.
which I know from reading your book. Red deer are also very important to the goddess Artemis too. So just
Yeah.
some other things to look forward to that are they're all intertwined. Everything about this trip, I think, was really thought down to the details of how everything kind of plays together.
Yes. Yes. Yes, I agree. I don't think there's going to be any wolves on
No, yeah, it's
I
probably
guess
going to be too
fortunately
hard, but
I guess fortunately, but also unfortunately for the wolf population. Um, and I don't know that we'll see deer either because again, yeah, they are endangered and but I like the idea that we're supporting the national forests and also sort of bringing good energy to that space. Um, and actually, I like the idea that we're supporting even the smaller museums and the less visited sites. Um, because again, I think it's important to keep these things alive,
yeah.
and one of the things that we're doing, since we could just go over the itinerary however we feel like it, but one of the things that
Yeah.
we're doing is going in the back of a museum. So I spoke to Konstantina. I messaged her and she's like, "Yeah, I got your email, but it's Greek time." So she's like, "Yeah, it's April." And she's an archaeologist who was part of the dig of the Temple of Artemis at Rakita, and she has so much stuff in her storage. Okay, Brianna, like she
Wow.
was saying, she's got thousands of pieces, but she is the only person because they don't have funding who can go through the pieces, and each piece, even like when they found jewelry, has to have a number, has to be photographed, has to be
Right.
shelved. And if we got thousands, she's like, I'm going to spend the next 30 years, Carla, doing this. Um, so I'm very excited because when I saw her last, actually just this May, yeah, we went out for some coffee and some drinks, and she had said, if you want to bring people, I would love to share what we found,
Wow.
and I would love to, take you guys to Rakita. You just have to, put it in 6 months in advance, blah blah, get the permission. And I really like that aspect, and I'd like to incorporate that in all of our sort of future travels as well. Like this idea of doing something behind the scenes, but
Yeah.
while that's also supporting the work of the archaeology and the history, and going to a place that maybe is less visited. I think, how do I say this? I think Greece doesn't know how amazing and how interested the world is, and particularly women, but men as well, in goddess lore.
Mm,
Like when I first spoke to Constantina, I was trying to say to her, we're real like this would be really what you're doing is fascinating. She feels very much like, well, I'm doing a one project on a one temple, and I felt, and I'm like, no, 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 but this is huge for many of us who are returning to the goddess or reclaiming the goddess or
yeah.
if you didn't do the work, then I wouldn't be able to come visit, put it on a map. Then we wouldn't know that here's another temple to Artemis. Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
yeah,
That one person giving, all of their energy and time and to be able to do this. And that's like that speaks to the uniqueness of people, right? Like how everybody has their part.
yeah. And, I think a lot of the archaeological teams in Greece, especially the Greek ones, because there's a lot of, British and other Germany and other countries that come in to do dig. I'm not sure they know how appreciated they are. And so when we were talking about this trip, I had several, and perhaps this will happen in future trips, several different groups or towns where we could stop and we can ask to either look in the store, they call it, museum storage,
Mm,
or visit a site that's just been dug up, or sometimes visit a site that's locked and we can get permission. I mean, this takes some work and um, some reliance on the bureaucracy of the Greek government,
right.
but I think that I hope that allows them to realize that actually this has value, because the more they realize that something has value, the more they invest in, more digs and putting more stuff out in the museum floors, right? Like,
Right.
what are people interested in? And I had this discussion with her, and that now that, yes, we're interested in the traditional stuff, but also some of this other stuff, particularly around the goddess, is really fascinating to us. And yeah,
Yeah. There's so many layers to that too. How each person, right? Like we were talking about how each person can see something different when they go to, a museum or something like that. And when she starts, going through what she has there, it makes me think of how most of what we know about dinosaurs is from very few samples, right?
exactly.
So each piece is of such importance. And I think that another layer to that is the added lives of, and that's what makes history, I think personally, like so fascinating, is the everyday life, and how it's so different from our own now, and how they incorporated goddess worship and all of these other things and their spirituality and what they believed, and just trying to kind of dig through the clues. And one piece could be make or break our whole understanding of something, so you never know what you'd find, what would make a difference, in looking at the past.
Yes. And even the museums that we're going to, now that you say that, a lot of people, when they go to Athens, for example, they go to the Athens Museum, and that's fine. But it's
Hmm.
curated from a very patriarchal, colonizing perspective, like, and it's very dated in many ways. So you want to look at these important pieces because they do hold a lot of important pieces. But when I think
Right.
about Brauron, for example, that is a site that is simply focused on the goddess, and in this case, on the goddess Artemis. And
Mhm.
so, here we go into a museum just experiencing goddess artifacts, and it can feel quite overwhelming to see how many pieces are offered or were part of goddess sites that you can't find on Google, that you can't find online, that you can't even find when you go to the National Museum in Athens.
Right.
Um, and I think that, exactly like you said, that changes your perspective. Certainly it changed mine about, well, actually, it seems to me that the goddess was much more important and significant and worshipped than perhaps we were just led to believe, initially. Um, and I think for both you and I, this is part of the purpose of this trip as well, is to show a little bit of a different side of what's possible in the worship of the goddess, and in that sort of wild
Yeah.
perspective.
And how complex Artemis is. I think that people just think, oh, she's a goddess of the hunt and she's associated with deer and she has a bow and arrow and she's also kind of associated with the moon. But what I loved about even reading your book and diving deeper into that, and this also links to Brauron as well, is that she was mostly really associated with bears. And if you'd like to maybe like dive deeper into what the actual worship was at Brauron, and like how bears are incorporated into that as well.
So that's a very good question, because it's very difficult to answer that question accurately, in the sense that we know there were
Mm.
bears in Greece,
Right.
but not many. And this concept of the bear is very sort of, it's almost like Balkan, Northern, Eastern European, where there was a lot more bears, certainly.
Hmm.
And it predates the Greeks. The connection between the goddess and the bear is so very old. And so it's fascinating to me. We don't exactly know what happened in the actual rituals because we don't have any writings. But
Mm.
when you walk around the site, one of my favorite things to do when I travel with Sandra for our mapping project is we look at the maps, and we'll probably do something like that here too. And then we kind of figure out, by using the maps and where everything is located on the site, we kind of walk around and go, okay, well, if they started here, what would it have been like approaching the temple? Oh, they'd have to cross this river. And then we pause and be like, okay, well, this used to be a river. Now it's like a little, not even a stream some days. And there's a little bridge, but it used to be a massive. So actually walking through the site gives you some idea of how that would have felt. And then we talk about, well, what would that feel like at night? Or what would that feel like, of
Right.
course, under a full moon? Or, and then you see the size of the temple itself on this, well, the temple foundations in this case, but on the
Right.
site. And so then it gives you a better understanding of, well, what would fit inside this. And then you see where the altar is. So then you can imagine women and young women coming up to the altar and how they would go. So I think the experience itself, and the same thing for Eleusis, for example, when we go to Eleusis, we're going to walk the sacred path because the museum is actually at the back, which is wonderful because it allows you to walk
Mhm.
the sacred path. We're going to walk by the temples themselves, and then we're going to stand inside the Thesmophorian itself. So even though it has no roof, at this point, we're going to imagine that it was pitch black, and we're going to stop. Actually, on the sacred path, we can stop at the Hecate altar too. And
Mhm.
so it allows you a physical experience of what the ritual might have looked like. Now,
Wow.
At Eleusis, there's more theory as to what was going on than Brauron. At Brauron, um, there's some theory, but not so much. And
Yeah.
this, yeah, and I think the association with bears for Artemis comes from this idea of like the mama bear, this idea of the bear protecting the cubs, and since she is the protector of children, it's a very easy association. But it's also very much tied to the wild,
Right.
um, because the little girls are called little bears, and we know that they come to the temples to go through the transition between uh, childhood to womanhood, and that they shed their bareness,
Mhm.
that they shed their wild, in order to be prepared for marriage. Now, to be fair, we know that through male writings who never attempt
Right.
any of these things.
Right.
For all we know, they could have had a wild party for these young women and prepared them to be, yeah, bears in marriage. And right,
Right.
right, and the women came out of the temple and went, "Oh yeah, we're prepared for domesticity now," you know. But
Right.
really, they were in there going, "So this is how you run your husband, okay?" I mean, we don't know.
Right. Right. Yeah, we don't know. We
We don't know.
don't know.
We don't know, So we know that they shed their wildness supposedly, and that then they transition into this womanhood where they're ready to be married. But then there were, of course, other rituals and festivals that were happening there. So, and I think this is why it's also important for us to see the artifacts that were found there, because again, we get to see what people left, what people brought.
Right.
One of my favorite things, I asked Constantina when we were together in May, what's your favorite thing of all these thousands of things that you found, at the temple, these
Mhm.
little things? And she said the jewelry. She's like, people came and left, not nothing too fancy, but like anything that they had on them, bracelets,
Right.
rings, sometimes very simple things. And she goes, when you look at the jewelry, you can almost see the humanity of the person who was wearing it and left
Wow.
it there. And I love that. And I love this idea that we can see the humanity of the people that worshipped here through what they left behind.
Yeah.
And in the places that we're going, we're gonna see a lot of that. And 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 I'm very excited to talk to everyone about it to see what is your interpretation, right? Because how
Yeah.
does it make you feel, or what piece really moved you? Um, you know, yeah.
Yeah, that'll be really cool. And especially just, going back to the walking the actual path and seeing the topography of a place, right? And oh, there's a little branch here they had to step over. Well, it could have changed in the thousands of years, right? That happened, but like there's some things that don't change, and just, following that path and being able to connect in that way and visualizing, right? Even through the finding of the little trinket jewelry that was in Rakita, like just those little things that really bring us closer, to our ancient past, right? Is they were just like us, similar in many ways, obviously different in the ways of life, which I think is one of the ultimate things that is really fascinating about history and being able to, go to these ancient sites. It's incredible.
Yeah. And we're not used to anymore going to a sacred site and leaving things. I mean, okay, now we don't leave things because we want to keep environmentally friendly, and people bring
Sure, right.
flowers, right? Or people will often bring water because, of course, Greece now is much drier than it was 2,000 years ago, and so water has become a very main tool for offering. So for me, for
Mhm.
example, when I arrive at a temple site, it's usually dry, anyways. And
Yeah.
pouring water or leaving some water, I always find quite rewarding as an offering. And like I said, we don't want to leave anything that's sort of non-biodegradable. But the idea that
Exactly.
right, but the idea that they left stuff inside, of course, these were fully built active temples inside there with a hope or a wish or a prayer. Um,
Yeah.
it's it's touching in so many ways. And now we are going there and we are feeling a lot of that energy because both of these spots, in fact, all three of these spots, and I've never been to the mountain, so I'm very excited to go hiking with everyone. I've never been to
Yeah.
this particular mountain. But to feel that again, yeah, it's very powerful to feel that energy and to connect to it. Um, and to literally step in the feet, in the footsteps of the ancient.
Take our feet and walk in the footsteps.
That's right.
So I'm going to go over the itinerary now for those listening. The dates for this trip are April 19th through the 26th of 2026. We are going to be meeting in Athens. You will get a flight to the Athens airport, and we will help you. We are not covering flights for this trip, but we are covering transportation. So once you arrive on the 19th, I know we already have one person signed up that is going to come a little bit early, which is great. I'm excited for them to be able to do that. And if you guys want to stay before or after, that's totally up to you too. But just know that your airport transfer is covered, and we'll make sure to get you to the hotel that we're staying at. And so that first day will just kind of be like arrivals, getting settled, connecting, getting dinner, food, and then resting for the next day. So our very first excursion together on that next day, the 20th, will be Eleusis, which again, very excited for. Day 3, we're going to be doing archery and clay making. So I'm not exactly sure if we're going to be doing, morning or evening, vice versa, for what time that's going to be. But as we get closer, we'll have more, focused details. Day 4 will be Brauron, and then we'll be going to a winery, and then we're going to go to the hotel after that, outside of Athens.
Well, we're waiting to see what Constantina tells us because she has to get all kinds of approvals for us to do that. And then I hope that that day at Rakita we get on the bus because Rakita is about an hour outside of Patras, and hopefully Constantina comes with us. I think she will on the bus, and then we get to Rakita and we walk around, and she can show us. Normally, the site is closed and locked and covered. Um, as you can see from the image, to be protected. So she would have opened all of that for us and we can walk around, and then she can tell us a little bit about, how the dig took place and all that kind of stuff. And then we can come back and grab lunch and hang out. And I think that evening we're heading back to Athens.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then that way we'll be heading back to Athens after that. And that way we could just relax on the bus and everything like that. And then day 7, that will be our really awesome Mount Parnitha hike. We will be doing, so this also, just to keep in mind, to be, you don't have to be overly active, but I would probably say like intermediately active to be able to walk around the sites, things like that, doing the hike. It is going to be around possibly a 4-hour hike around there, but it's going to be like 2 hours into the forest. We're going to stop. We're going to have lunch at the place that's in the forest that's included in our hike, and then hike back out. So it'll be a really nice excursion for us to be really, and after the whole week of really connecting with Artemis, to be able to, I think, connect with her presence in the forest on the last day together, is something that's, I think, going to be pretty powerful. I know we were talking about leaving some possible moon water offerings that will provide as well. Again, something that is safe for the environment, but I think something that Artemis would really appreciate, especially saying how Greece has been a lot drier since at least 2,000 years ago. So I'm sure that'll be great too.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, and I love the idea that we're just taking our time to walk, and that we have somebody with us, who can and then we're having lunch in the forest, and um, yeah, I love the idea that we can like reflect on what we've seen and experienced while also in the forest. And I
Yeah.
wouldn't mind doing some circles and maybe a little meditation and singing, maybe even in the forest. Like,
Yeah.
just some random songs, especially if people know. I'm not that good with knowing all the songs, but we'll find something to
We'll
sing,
find
or
something.
right,
Yeah,
something,
absolutely.
yeah, and so I love that we are sort of kind of almost like saying goodbye in the forest to her, see you next time kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I love the idea that we are gonna bring a little bit of moon water for everybody to make a little offering, and um,
Yeah, it's like I think it's like the perfect offering. I know we both connected with Elise Wells, who is seeking Numina. She is a Greek high priestess, and I remember when I had her on the podcast fairly recently, she also said water is like the best type of offering, right? Like it's, you don't have to worry about it environmentally, as long as it's like clean filtered water, like you're not bringing gross water anywhere. And obviously enchanting it with, the power of like moon water, I just think is like the perfect combination of, having this offering to leave at the end of our amazing trip to connect even more with Artemis. It's going to be really powerful, I think, really special.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and then we'll have our final dinner, which will make me
Yes.
super sad, and
Yeah.
but we'll get to again reflect a bit, eat some good Greek food, and I believe the next day everyone heads back out.
Yeah.
Feels
Yeah.
like it's gonna go so
Absolutely.
fast. When I look at it
I
and when we
know.
talked about it, I'm like, "Oh my god, we're gonna blink and it's gonna
We're
be"
gonna blink and it's gonna be gone.
right? Right?
Yeah.
Right?
But I think it's going to be great that each day does have like a designated day, but it's not going to be too overpacked. It's really going to be about you learning, absorbing, connecting, with the space that's around you and with, whoever else feels called to go. I think that this is also again about like being with people that are all in the same interests. That's why I started this podcast, because I love the people that I surround myself with, but there's only so many times I can talk to people about like birds or something like that. So I have different guests on so that I could dive even deeper onto my nerdy side to be able to do that. So it'll be nice to connect with like-minded people, and again to be in the like topography of the space, to absorb that, feel what those people felt as they were worshiping and connecting with Artemis.
yeah, I agree. I agree. And I'm glad that we have a great balance between going to some of the sites, going to the museums, and then sort of having, some relaxing time in the afternoon, evenings. Um, it's tough to it's tough to do all the things that I'm like, oh, we have to do this and we have to do this and we should do this and we should do that.
Yeah.
And at the same time, uh, not be exhausted. When Sandra and I go on the mapping project, like we pack insanely in a day, insane to the point where sometimes we get home and we're like, what the hell was that? Uh, and
That
so
might have been too much.
it's too much. It's too much. So I'm also, yeah, I'm really looking forward to like being present, and being with others in spaces also forces you to be present. Um, and I'm really looking forward to that. And to focus on like the daily thing for today. We'll go to Eleusis, and then we'll go to the so it's like there's a relax into the space kind of thing. Um,
Yeah, and I'm
yeah,
excited even just like for the bus rides for all of us to on the way there and on the way back to be able to learn together on the way there and then exchange, again, like what we saw there, what we felt there, like everything with each other, and I think that this could probably be a really great trip for like reflective journaling. I know that I'm going to bring a journal with me. I've definitely been feeling Goddess Artemis calling to me, so I'm really excited about connecting with her on this trip too.
yeah. See, that makes me so happy when you say that, because I can't wait to like hear your thoughts as you reflect on what you're writing while we're on
Yeah.
it. You know what I mean? Like, I
Hmm.
feel like she is calling, like, whoever feels to come with, and I know some people have signed up, so those people feel called to come with us. And whoever um, feels called to come with us, I feel like she's calling them, like, they are ready for something that she's going to
Yeah.
offer. Um,
And what is
yeah.
she going to show them, right? Like that's the cool thing too is like, ooh, what is she going to show that person
Yeah.
like there with us? Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. I also wanted to, I guess, like to talk more about Artemis. We've talked a lot about like the trip and the logistics and everything like that, but I think that it would be great to touch on, I guess, like, and we did some of this already, but like I guess like diving deeper into Artemis, especially because I just read She Who Hunts, so I have it like all in my mind, and like to talk about like the complexities of her and like how through this trip we're really connecting with her. So yeah, I don't know if you have any thoughts about that. I didn't have like a specific question to like ask you, but how you would maybe want to start off talking about her.
Well, I think to tie it to the trip, and then not, but to tie it to the trip first, everywhere we go, there's a temple of Artemis,
Yeah.
which is unexpected to some degree, because like when you go to Eleusis, it's advertised as Demeter and Persephone and Hecate, which we will see. We'll go to the Plutonium, where Hades and Persephone reside. But then there's a temple of Artemis right in front. In fact, the first thing you see is a temple of Artemis. And I wasn't expecting that when I first arrived, for example. And then, of course, we go to Brauron, which is all Artemis, Rakita, Patras, etc. So I think that ties into how complex Artemis was as a goddess, that while she was a goddess of the wild and the forest and the animals, she's also a goddess of the city. She's also a goddess of humans. She's also a goddess of transitions. She is a goddess of life and death. She is a goddess of um, providing and protecting. So my argument is that she is the most popular goddess in ancient Greece.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm hoping to eventually prove that with the evidence that I'm collecting. But certainly, um, there is already evidence out there. I just don't know why it wasn't. Well, okay. I think we've talked about this before. I think she just didn't interest male scholars in the way that they were interested in Aphrodite or Athena or whatever. I think that's got to be the answer because there is just, she encompasses so much of daily human life and then so much of the environment. How can she not be important to you as a scholar, reading about her? So,
Yeah.
I find that so fascinating. And the more I find of her spaces, her names, her epithets, her responsibilities, the more I'm like, this goddess seems all encompassing and was
Yeah.
worshipped so widely and has so many temples. How could anyone have ignored her? Um, which is why I also think she's coming back
Yeah.
with such a vengeance. She's calling so
Yeah.
many people to her. She's calling so many people to her. So many people feel called by her that I'm teaching with a colleague, a person I've never taught with before, and we had a meeting right before the class at the university where I'm teaching. And she said to me, the minute I saw that you work on Artemis, I knew that we would get along because I've been feeling called by this goddess forever. And I was like,
Ooh.
known each other for some time. We've never had this conversation. And I thought, wow, it's almost like more and more people coming out of the woodwork, coming out of. I was
Yeah.
like,
I love
what?
that analogy, by the way. That's literally perfect for her. Just has to say that.
Yeah, right? I mean, there's magnificence to her, and her rituals are both wonderful and beautiful and really tough, some of them, really
Yeah.
gory, some of them are a bit dark. So what I mean by that is that she encompasses all layers of human experience, that there is darkness in life and that there's light and then there's youth, and there's death um and so yeah, I it is a question that I'm perpetually answering. And
Yeah.
perhaps this is why I like talking about her so much, is that in one way people are feeling called to her, and in another way I feel called, and I've been feeling called to tell her story. Um, and if people say to me, well, I have this situation in my life, whatever it is, and I will say, well, Artemis can deal with that. It's almost
Yeah.
like every life experience situation that you're going through, Artemis can answer that call. Now, of course, there are other gods. I don't want to be, too biased. Um,
Right. Right.
right? And ancient people worshipped many gods, and that was very much part of their experience. Um, but I guess part of me feels like, okay, many of the Olympian gods, for example, have had their day. It's great, wonderful. But there's a few that didn't really get as much, didn't really get the truth about what their worship was like being told. You know what I mean?
Right.
Um, they were sort of pushed to the side a little bit. Um,
Yeah. What fascinates me, and I think what really has pulled me towards Artemis specifically now, ever since we connected after I read your book, I'm like, I don't know. I feel like maybe she's been slowly calling me for a really long time and is like, hello, I'm here. Like, in a way, because she's really the ultimate wild goddess, especially after reading She Who Hunts and going through all like the details. I mean, the thing that I found so fascinating is, when I was younger, I really loved Athena, but then I forget if it was in your book or if I listened to you talk about it, but I think that the thing that's very interesting is Athena's still ruled by responsibilities, right? In regards to um uh like she's the goddess of war, like she has Athens to look after, and you know Artemis is totally responsible just for herself, the sovereignty of herself, and she has full sovereignty of herself, which is unlike a lot of ancient representation of women in the past, which is really amazing. And she really, I think, led the way for women being able to move freely of themselves in life, to be able to be like, no, I'm a person. Like, yes, I'm a woman, but I am a person, and my body is my own. Like, what I think, like, how you view me as my own, like, everything about that is just so awesomely feminist too.
Yeah.
Yeah, like she just represents something. And another point that I just want to add before I forget, because mom brain, is what I love about the wild woman, and I think what I really love about Artemis is, again, and this is seen in her worshiping pattern, is her complexities of what she's worshiped for, what she's associated with. I know we talked about this the last time. She is both, like, she looks after people, she looks after children, she is the goddess of childbirth, little, like, protecting little children, but then she's also very fierce and unforgiving, like. And I think that the wild woman, that's why it's so hard to grasp, I think, because for some people at least, is because she's so complex, like the wild woman archetype, which is totally Artemis as well. And it's this, the life is so complex, and so is the wild woman. She is both sympathetic and empathetic, but she's also fierce and unforgiving. She's both sides of the same coin, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. And I think that's, first of all, that's how women are,
Yeah.
like in the sense that they're complex beings, and that's how humans are. That's how. So we all have a kindness and then a not so kindness, and we all have a light and darkness. And I agree with you that Artemis um, embodies the wildness in ways that sometimes we find a little cruel. I mean, she
Mm-hmm.
kills Niobe's children because Niobe offends her mother, and she doesn't think about it. Now, to be fair, gods can be quite cruel across the board, so that's not to be unexpected.
Right.
And she is the protector of deer, and yet she hunts deer. I think
Right.
what's amazing about that, though, is that that's how life on this planet. I mean, in order to eat and survive, you have to kill something. Well, they used to have to kill something. I suppose you could live
Right.
off of just, um, and the act of taking a life should not be taken lightly. And I think Artemis is a great divinity, let's say, or entity for that she doesn't take she protects let's say the deer, but all the animals in the forest.
Right.
She respects them, and she understands that the kill may be necessary to survive, but it has to be
Right.
respected. So um I think that's also how mothers operate,
Mm-hmm.
where you understand, and by mothers I mean both biologically and guardians of other people and etc., where you understand that there may have to be a cost or a sacrifice in protecting and feeding and taking care of whoever you're responsible for. And I think for me that's exactly where I find that Artemis and I are not relatable, more than relatable, almost like a kinship, a human, no, not human, um, a being, a being on this planet. Because I'm just
Yeah.
thinking all animals have to eat to survive, and in some ways, all animals have to kill to survive. And so it's
Right.
not just us as a human species. It's the only difference between us and other animals is that an animal will kill to eat, and then once it's full, it doesn't just kill for pleasure, right?
For
Uh,
nature.
most
Yeah.
of the time in nature, yeah. Where
Yeah.
humans, we have some problems. But I think for me, when I had my daughter, I realized that I could cross that threshold to protect her, whatever threshold is required, without any regrets. And it was quite
Yeah.
frightening to see that side of
Yeah.
myself, right? Because, you know, I don't kill anything. I barely kill spiders or something, right? Like only if we have
Same.
an
Yeah.
agreement. Only in the house, right? Like outside, Um, so uh, I think that and that's for hunters across the board, whatever gender they identify, or for people who are surviving, in every way, farmers, whatever, right? The human experience in this way. has, requires some kind of sacrifice in order to feed and protect your family. And
Right.
I think that's what makes her so, I think that's why she has so many temples, to be honest. I think she people really felt like this goddess gets me even when I'm in the darkness and when I'm in the light. At the
Yeah.
same time, I also think that because she's so fierce, and you're living in a time, well, we're still living in those kind of times, I guess, when, traveling is dangerous, being a woman is dangerous, I don't know, etc. is
Right.
dangerous. You want, you feel more comfortable relying on a goddess that is going to make the hard decisions to protect you. Like, you want to lean on a protector that is fierce, that is intentional, that is retributional. And Artemis has this reputation for you do something wrong, you get punishment.
Right.
Action and etc. Right? You cross a line, you get punished. You try to hurt someone that's mine, you get punished. You know what I mean? And I think
Right.
humans found her the most reliant. That's what explains to me
Mhm.
all the hiking to the top of the mountains to offer a sacrifice. So it's a dangerous hike to get up there. It's a dangerous hike today. It was a dangerous hike back then. For you to offer something because you trust that this goddess is going to watch your back,
Mm.
you know? And I want to say, and this is my opinion at this point, that she is the most trusted because we see so many of her temples either in interesting sites, sometimes dangerous places, dangerous, high up in the mountain.
Right.
Um, and there's just so many of them. And so I can understand that. I can put myself in the position of an ancient person who's like, well, if I'm traveling through this world, I'm trying to get through this world, or my children are trying to get through this world, which is so rough, which we can all relate to even to today, who would I lean on? Who would I make an offering to? Yes, there are many varieties of gods, but it seems like Artemis is the one that they really trusted to watch their backs to come through.
Yeah. Wow, she's so amazing, right? Like being able, again, those transitioner, like the dangerous times, those transitionary periods of people's lives. She was there, right? Through childbirth and through adulthood for women going from, from childhood to adulthood and, um, all of those things. It's just it really goes to show, and I think that it's really fascinating that it's like, oh, she's somebody that I know is going to look over me, right? And how she's been so overlooked. And even in your book when you talked about, and I think that like it makes a lot of sense how she was also possibly like associated, even before the Greeks came, and how she was almost like she was always there. So that also makes sense in that way too, is that she was the goddess that was always there, in a different way, in a different time before this is like established pantheon. Yeah.
Yeah. It makes sense, I mean, I don't know that she was called Artemis. It's hard to
Not
pinpoint when,
right.
but as mistress of animals and as mistress of the wild, and it makes sense because humans lived in the wild and they lived with animals, and having a negotiator and a collaborator as a divine energy it was important to survival. So it made sense that there's an entity to be in that liminal space between this world and the other worlds, whether it's human nature, whether it's this life and the afterlife, whether it's etc. Right? Like she stands
Yeah.
in these liminal spaces, um, and she seems to be very comfortable there. And so,
Yeah. And I feel like it just like, right, we don't know if she specifically, but like that energetic, like that energy of like the wild being worshipped in this form as mistress of animals. And like you said, she has a ton of different names that she's associated with. Uh but I love Mistress of Animals. I was trying to find my shirt to wear that one today. I have a little design that's you know, based off of one of those pots, those Greek pots of Mistress of Animals. But I showed up with my Big Bear and Little Bear
which I love, by the way. It's
shirt
wonderful.
today. Thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah,
Yeah.
had to show up with something related to her. But yeah, I'm just it's just unbelievable the depth and connection that she has in so many different facets and ways that we're going to explore. And like I feel like it's cool to be doing things like archery to really connect with her in that sense. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. I love doing a little archery. And I've been studying her for a long time before I even started archery. So a lot of people might not, some people who are coming with us might have done it before, some people might have not. Um, and at first I was like, I don't know if I want to do archery, you know what I mean? And then as I was doing my first class, I was like, actually, like I can feel like just the body and the learning and then sort of the experience of like aiming for some. And I thought, you know what? No, this is good practice because a lot of those who worshipped her were archers or were hunters, men and women. And and I think there's a connection in performance, in doing the
Yeah.
task itself, right? So I'm very excited about. I'm also excited about the clay class that we're doing
Me
because,
too.
right,
Yeah.
then that's something that's also you're using your hands to create something. And I'm actually not
Right.
very good, by the way. So whatever I
That's
make,
okay. We're all, no one has to be good at anything. We're all just experiencing everything together as beginners. No one has to be experienced in that. Um, but yeah, I'm really excited about the clay making class. I know that the woman that I talked to that's going to facilitate this for us even said we could do an offering like, you know, to make a sacred deer, Artemis's sacred deer. But I think I also saw she has like bears, so I'm sure once we go in there and get a little closer, we can talk about like the specific ones that we can make that are going to be symbolic. And again, you could bring these home with you. These are going to be great souvenirs. And I think just in the sense that obviously clay making isn't specifically associated with Artemis, right? So just wanted to say that. But I think that there's something very grounding about making something. And I think, again, this connection of connecting to the people, like in a sense of connecting to the people that worshiped her. So in that worshiping aspect, right? Like creating something, coming up with something that's going to be kind of in her honor. Obviously you're bringing it home as like a reminder, but you'll always have that. Like you could put it on, if you have an altar, you could put it on an altar just as like a decor, as like memory of your trip. But again, like the physical aspect, right? Like being able to connect and like how ancient people created something, and in the sense of like worship and what this meant to them. So I think that there's going to be a lot of really great connection there as well. That's not even so much directly associated with Artemis as it is just the ancient way of life.
I mean, people did have terracotta
Right.
pieces of
Dedicated
Artemis.
to her. Right.
Their
Yeah.
And, I'm sure they also had probably pieces of a deer or bears or other animals or whatever came to them. And sometimes they offered those pieces at the temple, but often they also had them in the house on their altar. So for me too, I think that whatever I'm inspired to make, I will bring home and put on my altar
Yeah.
as bringing a piece of that home with me and of her home with me. So um, yeah, it feels very, very similar to what they may have done. Now, they may have gone to a local shop and picked up a piece of terracotta, or they may have made them
Sure.
themselves, some of them, right? So we get to really, I like that we get to do different mediums of connecting
Yeah.
to her throughout these days. Again, I really like the fact that I'm going to be able to focus on that while we're together and like be present with her and with like that's quite rare for me, in one way because I
Yeah.
travel on my own and so I will see things or be places and then I won't really have someone to talk to. Or, I go with Sandra and after a while. She probably gets a little tired of me. Uh, but, having people, yeah, experience and be excited about her is going to be really exciting, I think, for me. Just like you said earlier, I feel a little selfish in this because I'm like, I can't wait to just spend a week talking all about Artemis and another gods,
Yes.
you know?
Yes, absolutely. And again, I just like I can't wait to nerd out with everybody that's going to come. It's like going to be embracing, you know, our, like divine selves. And even though this is associated with the goddess Artemis, I think that, I would also like to add that, if there are any men that feel called to this, because she also had male worshippers too, right? This isn't just a goddess that is specifically only for women. She's for everybody. So even if you're male and you feel called to connect with her, the doors are welcome. This is not only for women. But yeah, I think that we all have obviously divine masculine and feminine energies, regardless of our actual gender inside of us as well too. And I think that also Artemis brings about, and in that way, that connection too. Like she is very masculine in the sense of some of her energies, traditionally being like hunting or, the severe independence of being like her own self, but then also like the feminine qualities of loving and protectiveness too.
Yeah, I think that she really embodies the human experience. And
Yeah.
while I agree that a lot of those characteristics are cross gender, that
Yeah.
everyone experiences that, I think that she really is one of the few divinities, certainly in the Greek pantheon, that really has that stretch.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and clearly she had male worshippers, obviously, lots, I mean, hunters, male and female hunters, um,
Yeah.
worshipped her and left her goods in the forest. But men, for example, built her temple. So the temple of Brauron, for example, was built by men and funded by men, even though it was a space only for women. Men
Mm-hmm.
didn't go into the temple of Brauron at the time. And even now, we're not actually going to go into the temple of Artemis. That's just because you're not allowed, but we're going to walk around the property.
Right.
Um, but I think that, yeah, I think that she really embodies a full human experience. And, it's not really up to me to decide who she calls to come and experience
Yeah.
these spaces. I leave that to the goddess and to whoever feels called to join us. And so,
Yes.
and that will also be very interesting. Um,
Yes.
right? That will also be very interesting as well. So, yeah, and all ages kind of thing, right? Like obviously, and
Yeah.
so yeah, I think that whoever feels called to join, whoever she draws close to us for this trip, Brianna, will be sort of our very first inaugural, kind of experience. And then from that we will learn and build and move forward. And yeah, I'm
Yeah, I'm
excited.
very excited. I know we've been, I won't mention some of the things that we've talked about, behind the scenes, but we've definitely chatted about, some other trip ideas after this that could be really fascinating too. So, I think definitely if you can't join this one, look out for the next one because I think we're connecting and, hopefully going to come up with another great experience in the future as well that, will be tied to this, and then hopefully even other ones that are just in her essence, right? So that'll be really great. But yeah, anybody that feels called to this, we're really looking forward to connecting with you. Both Dr. Carla and I are very open and receptive to messages. Like we're always here if you have any questions, obviously any logistics questions, anything like that, we'd be more than happy to ask. You can DM or message either one of us, email us. I'll provide all of that stuff in the description below as well.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yes. Anything else that you would like to add?
No, I don't think so. I think, oh, well, I would like to add that everything comes in its own time, you know? I've been thinking about this
Yeah.
for a while, and so have you, and 2026 seems to be, and 2026 is year one, which is sort of the beginning, and I find it interesting that this is this will be our first year to do a trip. So it's like it's the beginning of another journey with Artemis and with others. So yeah, I'm very excited about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really excited. And to get if you are interested in coming on this trip and you really want to dive deeper, if you haven't yet, I would absolutely recommend Dr. Carla's book, She Who Hunts. It's
Yeah.
a really great read. I read it so fast. I literally read it in 3 days. And it goes over Brauron, it goes over a lot of the different places that we are going to visit and connect with on this trip. And then she also came out with her new book, She Who Endures, which I'm super excited to read. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
really
who
looking
knows? Like
forward to that.
maybe one day we'll get to Ephesus, Brianna, and we will, maybe one day we'll do
Yes.
it, right? Like,
Yes. Yes.
I think that, yeah, I think the goddess really guides us in this way. She really tells us, okay, where does she want us to bring some people?
Exactly. Yeah, this first trip I think aligned itself, and honestly the places and all of that kind of, I think, really puzzle pieced itself together. So it kind of felt like Artemis really planned this trip, just saying. Um but
Yeah.
yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. And if you do come on the trip and if you did buy the book, then you can bring it with you and have Dr. Carla sign it and get a nice signed edition. I know that's what I'm going to do.
Yes, of course. Yes, yes.
Yes. All right. Well, Dr. Carla, I am really looking forward to seeing who else comes to join us. If you have any additional questions about this trip, you can feel free to either direct message us, comment below, shoot us a DM, and we'll feel free to answer it. And then, yeah, you can, Dr. Carla, do you want to also mention how people can find you and connect with you as well?
Yeah, so my website, artemisresearchcenter.com, has everything in there from the courses to the trip to
Okay.
community, um, and then Artemis Expert online everywhere pretty much. Yeah, please DM us if you have any questions, either, of course, about Artemis, but also about this. And um, yeah, always excited. Sometimes people DM me and they're like, "I'm sorry to bug you, but I've had this whole experience with Artemis," and I'm like, "Oh, this is not bugging me at all, not
I'm
ever."
very excited about this.
I'm like, "Yes, yes, send me your
Yes.
experiences." Yeah, yeah,
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Wild Ones, for listening, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye.